Did you know that the crow on your wire doesn't just see you, it remembers you? They map our world with a 17-million-year-old intelligence, recognizing faces, passing down traditions, and speaking a private language meant only for those they trust. Tonight, we step into the soft, deep dark of their hidden world for a journey of pure rest. Close your eyes, let the day fade, and listen. The twilight deepens, wrapping the landscape in a quiet embrace, and it is in this space of stillness that our journey begins. There is a sanctuary here, found within the calmest rhythms of the natural world, crafted to unfold gently like a soft velvet shroud being smoothed over a bed at the very close of a weary day. Our immersion hours will be spent alongside an organism of profound mental clarity and deep time awareness, the crow. If these slow, meditative chronicles offer your mind a peaceful pathway towards slumber, your gentle interaction through a like, a subscription, or a solitary word left in the comments provides a glowing beacon for other exhausted souls seeking this exact refuge. Directly supporting the continuous creation of these tranquil scientific explorations can be done through the Patreon link resting below, helping to keep this fragile ecosystem of quiet thoughts alive. No obligation exists. Simply settling into this shared space of wonder is a gift in itself. Observing the stark silhouette of a crow commands a very specific kind of human attention. This is not the immediate, effortless captivation sparked by the dazzling iridescence of a tropical bird flaunting a kaleidoscope of plumage or an intricate, melodic aria. These birds are defined by a severe, monochromatic matte black. Their vocal expressions are heavy, unadorned, and structurally raw. They do not hide themselves away in the pristine isolation of remote rainforests. Instead, they have woven their lives completely into the fabric of our daily landscapes. They line the high-voltage wires during the gray dawn, walk with absolute, unhurried composure across urban parking lots, and gather on the frosted branches of winter trees as the final embers of day dissolve into night. Yet beneath this mask of commonality lies an undeniable intentionality, manifested in the way they measure their environment, calculating every movement and tilting their heads to lock you in a gaze that feels undeniably conscious. A parallel history exists between humans and crows, stretching back much further into antiquity than our modern minds usually appreciate. Early agricultural expansion and nomadic settlements inadvertently established a permanent baseline of resources for these birds, offering a predictable supply of discarded items, harvest remnants, and the domestic refuse of developing civilization. Over centuries of proximity, this basic survival link evolved into a sophisticated, multi-directional observation dynamic. Human communities began noticing that they were being systematically watched, categorized, and remembered by the birds around them. Tonight, the timeline of the Corvid universe will be unreeled with absolute patience, tracing the neural networks of their thoughts, their emotional depths, their complex morning behaviors, and their capacity for abstract play. What empirical ornithology has quietly uncovered reveals an organism of immense complexity operating just beyond the periphery of our hurried lives, offering a narrative designed to wash over your awareness like a slow river moving across smooth stones toward sleep. Understanding the true nature of a crow requires a descent into the deep branches of evolutionary classification. These creatures belong to the Corvidae family, an ancient and highly successful avian lineage that includes ravens, rooks, social jackdaws, magpies, vibrant jays, and nutcrackers. This expansive evolutionary group has mastered almost every terrestrial ecosystem on Earth, adapting with flawless precision to contrasting climates ranging from frozen tundras to scorching desert borders. Within this familial structure, true crows occupy the specific genus Corvus, a branch comprising roughly 45 distinct species distributed globally. From the highly adaptable American crow and the carrion crow of Europe to the hooded, jungle, large-billed, and endangered Hawaiian varieties, Each species represents a highly tuned response to its specific geographic habitat. They are bound together not merely by shared anatomical traits, but by an unmistakable quality of alert presence that feels startlingly deliberate. The American crow, or Corvus brachyrhynchos, serves as a prime example of this genus, measuring between 17 and 21 inches from its heavy bill to the tip of its fan-shaped tail. Though appearing as a flat, absolute black from a distance, their feathers possess a highly complex structural coloration that produces a beautiful iridescence under direct light, shifting between deep midnight blues, rich purples, and metallic greens. Their signature caw is a foundational acoustic element of the natural world, yet the true scope of their vocal communication involves an intricate matrix of sound. Field researchers have documented at least 25 distinct vocalizations within their repertoire, utilizing separate acoustic structures for communal assembly, immediate territorial alarms, and low-frequency contact notes shared exclusively between nesting partners. Evidence even points to the existence of distinct regional dialects, indicating that localized crow populations pass down specific vocal variations to their offspring through generational social learning. Allow the weight of your physical body to settle completely into the space beneath you, releasing the tension held within your shoulders and the base of your skull. No external demands exist here. Your only task is to glide through the quiet biology of the crow. The initial phase of a crow's life cycle is defined by an absolute, fragile vulnerability that stands in stark contrast to their adult competence. Newly hatched crows, known as nestlings, are altricial, meaning they emerge from the egg at a highly undeveloped stage, lacking feathers and with their eyelids tightly sealed. They remain completely dependent upon their abevian for thermal regulation, nutrition, and physical defense during an incubation period that spans 17 to 18 days of quiet vigilance. Even after fledging a month later, these juvenile birds require intensive parental guidance and feeding for several months. In many established corvid structures, older siblings from previous seasons remain with the nest as auxiliary breeders, helping to forage and guard the new generation. This extended childhood and reliance on a multi-generational social unit is directly tied to the significant energy required for their advanced brain development. Crows possess an exceptionally high brain-to-body mass ratio, a feature neurobiologists quantify using the encephalization quotient, or EQ. This mathematical formula measures an animal's actual brain volume against what would be predicted based strictly on its total body weight. On this scale, crows and ravens score higher than virtually all other avian species, reaching levels that directly parallel several intelligent social primates. While the internal architecture of the corvid brain lacks the layered neocortex found in mammals, it utilizes a densely packed structure called the nidopallium, which supports advanced cognitive computing, episodic memory, abstract planning, and social reasoning. The practical application of this neurological processing power represents one of the most compelling fields of study within modern cognitive science. Let the surrounding world fade into a soft background murmur as your awareness drifts. The steady progression of this corvid history requires nothing from you but your quiet presence. The capacity for complex tool manipulation stands as one of the most profound markers of corvid intelligence ever observed by science. Anthropological frameworks once defined tool creation as a uniquely human trait, an ideology that began to shift only when wild primates were observed modifying twigs to extract food. Crows dismantled these biases further by proving that highly articulate hands are not a prerequisite for complex engineering. The New Caledonian crow, an endemic species inhabiting a remote island group in the South Pacific, represents the absolute peak of avian tool fabrication. In their natural habitat, these birds systematically manufacture tools by bending tough plant stems into functional hooks and stripping wide leaves to the precise width needed to probe deep crevices for hidden larvae. They understand the material physics of their environment, selecting twigs with the exact tensile strength required to act as levers, and they value their creations enough to carry them between distant foraging sites to conserve cognitive energy. In laboratory settings, these birds regularly solve multi-tier sequential puzzles, demonstrating a clear capacity for abstract causal reasoning. A paradigm shift in cognitive biology occurred during a now classic laboratory study, centered on a captive New Caledonian crow named Betty. Faced with a vertical, transparent cylinder containing a small bucket of food out of direct reach, she was provided with nothing but a straight piece of metal wire. The bucket handle required a hook to be retrieved, a tool shape that was not present in her testing environment. Without any prior experience or training with the material, Betty systematically wedged the straight wire against the side of the container, deliberately bending it to form a functional hook, and smoothly extracted the resource. This feat was replicated across multiple successive trials, demonstrating an ability to mentally simulate, adapt, and innovate on a structural level. Parallel experiments have pushed this capacity for abstract planning even further by utilizing multi-tier sequential puzzles. In these scenarios, a crow is confronted with a deep tube containing a reward that cannot be reached with a short stick. To succeed, the bird must first use the short stick to extract a longer tool hidden inside a completely separate apparatus, and only then manipulate that longer tool to secure the food. This intricate chain of causal reasoning, anticipating a future need through a series of intermediate, non-rewarding steps, was once championed as an exclusive hallmark of higher primate evolution. Yet, corvids navigate these cognitive challenges with absolute composure. In the wild, this analytical processing translates into remarkable behavioral adaptations. Across various urban landscapes, American crows and related species have mastered the physics of their modern environment by employing vehicles as automated nutcrackers. They have been recorded dropping hard-shelled walnuts and mollusks directly onto busy roadways, waiting for the heavy tires of passing traffic to fracture the protective shells. Crucially, this is not an instinctual, hardwired behavior. It is an acquired cultural practice that is continuously refined. These birds do not scatter resources indiscriminately across active lanes. Instead, they selectively drop the targets within pedestrian crosswalks. This deliberate placement allows them to wait calmly on adjacent structures or light poles, monitoring the rhythmic patterns of traffic signals. When the lights turn red and vehicles come to a complete halt, the crows safely descend onto the crosswalk to gather the opened kernels. Processing this behavioral loop requires an extraordinary mental architecture. It demands an understanding of mechanical cause and effect, an awareness of human technological patterns, and the calculated patience to delay gratification until the environment is safe. Allow the natural rhythm of your breath to expand. Inhale slowly through the nose, and let the air escape gently through the mouth, releasing any remaining tension. There is no urgency in this hour, only the steady, unhurried world of the crow. The capacity of these birds to navigate complex social landscapes is further illuminated by their ability to recognize and remember individual human faces. This phenomenon was not uncovered by chance, but through a series of meticulous, groundbreaking longitudinal studies led by John Marsluff and his research team at the University of Washington. To study population dynamics safely, researchers needed to trap and band wild crows on the university campus. To test facial recognition without risking their daily safety, the handlers wore realistic rubber caveman masks during the brief trapping process. Following the release of the birds, researchers periodically walked the familiar campus pathways wearing the exact same caveman masks, interspersed with controlled trials using different masks or no masks at all. The reaction from the corvid community was immediate intense, and unmistakable. The individual crows that had been trapped recognized the specific facial features of the mask, instantly initiating loud, harsh scolding calls and coordinated dive-bombing maneuvers against the perceived threat. Passers-by wearing neutral expressions or entirely different masks were completely ignored. The birds had encoded not a vague, generalized trauma of the event, but a highly specific visual memory of the face associated with danger. The true marvel of the experiment unfolded as the years progressed. Crows that had never been captured or handled, including individuals from entirely different flocks and newly matured juveniles, began joining the aggressive scolding choruses whenever the caveman mask appeared. The specific information regarding the dangerous identity had spread through the local population via observation and vocal communication. This behavioral persistence was tracked across a generation. Young crows who had never personally encountered the original trappers reacted with immediate defense because they had been instructed by the older, experienced members of their collective. The critical knowledge traveled through Corvid society, much like oral history and warning systems flow through human cultures. Through targeted demonstration, social reinforcement, and observational learning. This reveals that Kargler are not merely reacting to immediate stimuli. They are actively constructing a collective, fluid understanding of their world, preserving and transmitting generational knowledge to ensure the survival of their lineage. A young bird can navigate a complex threat matrix perfectly simply because the community modeled the appropriate response, and the juvenile watched, processed, and understood. Let your physical framework sink a fraction deeper into the surface supporting you. Feel the heavy, comforting contact stretching down through your shoulders, relaxing your arms, settling your lower back, and moving gently down your legs to your feet. You are entirely secure, floating within the quiet history of the crow. While their memory for hostility is fierce, corvids retain an equally precise ledger for human kindness. Wildlife biologists and casual observers alike have long noted that consistent, positive interactions with a specific human can fundamentally alter a crow's behavior. When an individual regularly provides high-value sustenance, the birds rapidly learn to associate that unique human form with safety, altering their flight distances and intentionally arriving at the same location in anticipation of the encounter. In a well-documented case in Seattle, a young girl named Gabby Mann began a daily routine of feeding the wild crows in her residential yard, consistently offering peanuts and small portions of food. Over an extended period, the local crows began leaving small, physical objects in the exact clearing where the food was placed. The collection grew to include an array of discarded human artifacts: a piece of silver foil, a polished fragment of sea glass, a small metallic screw, a smooth plastic cap, and a bright blue button. While researchers continue to evaluate whether these instances represent intentional, reciprocal gifting or are simply objects the birds dropped while manipulating the food, the sheer regularity of the exchanges points to a distinct relational awareness. Many field biologists note that crows become visibly expressive around humans who treat them with respect, displaying a calm posture and remaining in close proximity for long stretches. Ample historical accounts exist of rehabilitated crows returning to human caretakers long after their release into the wild. Whether returning after a severe winter or following the healing of an injury, these birds often maintain a physical presence near their human allies, sometimes dropping small trinkets or simply sitting quietly on a nearby ledge. They actively track their relationships, cataloging who has demonstrated empathy and adjusting their social distance accordingly. Your breathing is slow now, steady and rhythmic, like the calm pull of an evening tide moving in and out, in and out. Let the ambient sounds of your surroundings soften into a distant, gentle blur. You are drifting deeper into the quiet. The social structure of the crow is anchored by an enduring commitment. They form lifelong, monogamous pair bonds. When observing a pair of crows perched closely together on a high wire against the twilight sky, you are witnessing a deep, multi-tiered partnership. Once a male and female establish a bond, they remain together across changing seasons and successive years, foraging in tandem, protecting their shared territory, and cooperatively raising their young. Courtship within Corvid societies lacks the flamboyant plumage and dramatic dances found in other avian families. Instead, it is characterized by a subtle, quiet grace. A male crow will gently puff his feathers, emit a series of low, rhythmic vocalizations, and shadow the female's movements with great attentiveness. He will engage in courtship feeding, offering delicate pieces of food directly into her beak, and spend hours meticulously preening the feathers around her head and neck. These partnerships can span decades. In larger corvid species like ravens, pairs have been documented remaining together for the entirety of their adult lives. When a partner is lost, the surviving bird frequently exhibits behaviors that strongly resemble grief, returning repeatedly to the location where the mate was last seen, emitting solitary calls, and spending days in a deeply subdued, inactive state. The physical vessel for this lifelong partnership is the nest, a structural marvel constructed high within the forest canopy or on secure architectural ledges. Both adults participate in its creation, carefully weaving an outer framework of sturdy sticks and coarse twigs to withstand seasonal storms. The inner chamber, however, is lined with exquisite care using the softest materials the environment can provide. Shredded tree bark, animal fur, moss, fine grass, and occasionally human hair gathered from the forest floor. The female shapes this hollow center using the contours of her own body, pressing the lining smooth until it forms a flawless, insulated cup. Taking up to 2 weeks to complete, this hidden sanctuary is securely anchored among dense foliage, designed to shield the fragile life within from the elements and the curious eyes of the waking world. Within the cloistered safety of the upper branches, the female settles over a clutch of 3 to 6 delicate eggs. They are small treasures of pale blue-green or olive brown, etched with irregular, dark markings that mirror the mottled shadows of the surrounding foliage. For nearly 3 weeks, her world contracts to the narrow diameter of the nest cup, her physical form anchoring the future of the lineage. Throughout this period of quiet confinement, her mate acts as her singular lifeline, traveling back and forth across the territory to bring sustenance directly to her bill, a devotion that maintains the fragile warmth of the nest. Should any wandering entity approach this hidden nursery, the quiet of the woods instantly dissolves into a display of absolute, unyielding defense. Both parents transform into fierce guardians, entirely indifferent to the size or power of the intruder. Whether the threat comes from a foraging raccoon, a nocturnal owl, or a much larger mammalian predator, the corvid response is relentless. Crows have been systematically documented harassing domestic animals, urban predators, and massive birds of prey that outweigh them many times over. They employ a specialized tactical behavior known to behavioral ecologists as mobbing. Launching themselves from the high canopy, they dive repeatedly within inches of the intruder's head, unleashing a cascade of sharp, piercing scolding calls that echo through the trees. This aerial assault is rarely a solitary endeavor. The alarm calls function as a localized broadcast, summoning neighboring crows to join the fray. Together, they create an atmosphere of such intense, chaotic psychological pressure that even the most formidable predator is eventually forced to retreat, driven away by the sheer, exhausting persistence of the collective. Allow your physical frame to surrender its weight a fraction deeper into the surface beneath you. Feel your shoulders sinking away from your thoughts, the muscles of your jaw unclenching, and the fine lines around your closed eyes softening completely. There is no need for vigilance in this room. The forest guardians are keeping watch over the dark tonight, so you do not have to. Among the various communal behaviors that define Corvid society, Few have generated as much scientific inquiry and philosophical reflection as what researchers refer to as crow funerals. This phenomenon begins with a distinct, striking behavioral pattern. When a crow perishes, its fallen form does not remain unnoticed in the undergrowth. Within minutes, the surrounding area fills with the forms of other crows, gathering in numbers that can easily swell from a few individuals to dozens. They congregate on nearby branches and telephone wires, peering down at the body while emitting a specific, highly intense chorus of harsh vocalizations. For an extended period, they maintain this focused vigil, moving carefully around the periphery of the deceased, occasionally descending to make brief, physical contact before eventually dispersing back into the silent sky. This profound social response was subjected to rigorous, controlled experimentation by John Marsluff and his dedicated research team. Utilizing taxidermied crow specimens placed in various simulated environments, sometimes paired with realistic models of predatory hawks, the scientists sought to decode the underlying mechanics of these gatherings. The empirical data revealed that the Corvid community responded to a deceased member of their own species with a specific, high-priority intensity that was never triggered by other baseline stimuli. The prevailing scientific theory suggests that these funerals serve a highly advanced, practical survival function centered on risk assessment and social learning. The sudden presence of a dead crow in a specific geographic location provides immediate, undeniable proof that a lethal hazard exists nearby. By assembling en masse and vocalizing aggressively, the surviving crows are actively conducting a real-time investigation of the environment. They are scanning the immediate architecture for predators, analyzing what went wrong, and updating their mental maps to answer a critical question. Is this specific location still safe for the collective? This represents an extraordinary, highly sophisticated cognitive response to mortality. It is a structured system of active informational gathering triggered by loss, designed to shield the living from an invisible threat. Yet, even as science maps out these evolutionary advantages, field biologists do not entirely dismiss the possibility of a deeper, internal dimension. From an external perspective, the quiet intervals of the gathering, the shared attention, and the mournful quality of the vocalizations carry the undeniable weight of what human consciousness recognizes as mourning. We cannot peer directly into the internal landscape of a crow as it looks down upon a fallen peer. We cannot know the precise emotional texture of what it feels like to be a corvid in that specific, solemn moment. What remains undeniable is that an ancient, recognizable ritual is unfolding, a communal acknowledging of a transition that has anchored Corvid society for countless generations. The rhythm of your breathing moves with a slow, effortless grace now. The chest rises and falls like the gentle swell of a calm sea. Everything within your immediate surroundings is settled, safe, and turning quietly toward rest. As the final embers of daylight drain from the western horizon, the solitary hunters and small family groups that spent the day scattered across fields and city blocks begin an extraordinary migration. They are traveling toward a massive, shared sanctuary known as a communal roost. While a crow may spend its waking hours operating within a small, localized territory, the onset of winter prompts them to seek safety in numbers that are staggering in scale. Across various regions, American crows are famous for establishing winter roosts that house thousands, tens of thousands, and occasionally hundreds of thousands of individual birds within a single concentrated canopy. The construction of these nightly cities is a gradual, hypnotic process. As the twilight deepens, crows from miles around begin flying along established aerial pathways toward a central node, often a dense stand of ancient trees located near the sheltered edges of a town or city. They arrive in successive, undulating waves, their voices overlapping as they wheel in massive, loose flocks across the darkening sky. They settle onto the branches, testing the weight of the wood, only to lift off again in a swirling vortex of black wings as more travelers arrive from the distance. This fluid, kinetic movement continues until the ambient light disappears completely, the branches fill to capacity, and the cold night permanently settles over the landscape. Ornithologists point to several intersecting evolutionary pressures to explain this massive nocturnal convergence. The most immediate factor is the security found within a vast collective. A sleeping community composed of thousands of highly alert organisms possesses an unparalleled network of sensory awareness. A predator approaching from the dark will be detected by an outer sentinel long before it can strike, triggering a mass defensive response. A single, isolated bird sleeping in the winter cold is infinitely more vulnerable than one nestled deep within a fortress of thousands. Thermoregulation provides a secondary vital advantage. The closely packed bodies of thousands of birds effectively alter the microclimate of the roosting trees, trapping radiant body heat and buffering individual crows against the biting chill of the midnight wind. Furthermore, researchers have proposed the information center hypothesis, suggesting that these roosts function as a complex network for resource sharing. A crow that located a highly rewarding, stable food source during the day will return to the roost displaying high energy and distinctive behavioral cues. In the morning, less fortunate members of the roost can simply shadow this successful individual as it departs, effectively receiving a direct tip on where to forage. The acoustic experience of a massive crow roost settling into the night is a profound, unforgettable event. Near the center of the gathering, the sound builds into a dense, symphonic wall of overlapping voices, a vast communal conversation where thousands of individual histories are vocalized at once. Then, as the absolute darkness of midnight takes hold, the volume drops, layer by layer, until the heavy chorus dissolves into the background of the night. All that remains is the occasional, solitary call echoing in the dark, the soft rustle of a feather adjusting against a branch, and then a deep, meditative silence. Thousands of living, breathing organisms are resting together among the high branches, their heartbeats slowing in unison as they share the quiet of the earth. Allow your awareness to blend with that immense stillness for a moment, settling into your own space of rest, untethered from any need to act or solve. Beneath the resting canopy, another dimension of Corvid intelligence remains hidden, an extraordinary mastery over memory and time demonstrated through the practice of caching food. While the hiding of resources for future use is a recognized survival strategy among various mammals and birds, crows execute this practice with a structural precision that continues to redefine our understanding of animal consciousness. They do not scatter resources randomly or rely on vague, generalized markers. Instead, they possess a highly accurate internal map that allows them to return to a specific coin-sized cache location after weeks have elapsed, smoothly retrieving the item without a moment of hesitation. Laboratory evaluations have revealed that this system of memory is far more complex than a simple catalog of geographic coordinates. Crows systematically keep track of the specific material properties of what they have hidden, alongside a precise calculation of the time that has passed since the burial. This temporal tracking is essential because different resources decay at different rates. An organic larva buried on a damp Monday will become inedible by the weekend, whereas a hard-shelled nut remains viable for months. Crows demonstrate a clear awareness of this decay timeline, systematically prioritizing the retrieval of highly perishable, delicate items long before they return to collect their non-perishable reserves. This sophisticated cognitive intersection of what was hidden, where it was placed, and exactly when the event occurred is recognized by cognitive scientists as episodic-like memory. It directly mirrors the human capacity to mentally travel back in time to reconstruct specific, contextual events from our past, rather than simply accessing an unlinked database of general facts. An even more astonishing layer of this mental architecture is revealed when we look at how crows manage the social risks of caching. If a crow detects that another member of its species is actively watching it hide a high-value piece of food, its behavior changes dramatically. It will frequently go through the motions of burying the item, only to wait patiently until the observing crow has departed the area. Once privacy is secured, the caching crow will quietly dig up the resource and re-hide it in a completely different, uncompromised location. Remarkably, detailed behavioral tracking has revealed that this specific defensive measure is employed only by crows that have themselves engaged in the theft of other birds' caches. Individuals that have lived in isolation or have never experienced the act of stealing do not re-hide their food when observed. A crow must first be a thief to understand the possibility of being robbed. It must know what it feels like to operate on the predatory side of the relationship to project that same deceptive intent onto the observer. In the realm of psychology, this capacity is known as a theory of mind, the rare, advanced ability to attribute distinct mental states, knowledge, and intentions to another individual, recognizing that their awareness is separate from one's own. It is an intellectual summit in the animal kingdom, and the crow navigates it with absolute, quiet mastery. Your thoughts are slowing down beautifully now, mirroring the calm, deliberate pace of the evening woods. Let them drift, expanding across the surface of your mind like autumn leaves settling on the glassy surface of a still pond, coming to a complete rest. The Corvid mind can carry the weight of thought tonight. You can safely let go. Amidst these profound displays of logic and survival, there exists an entirely endearing, vital aspect of crow life that highlights the sheer depth of their consciousness, their profound love for play. In the strict terminology of evolutionary biology, true play is defined as behavior that lacks any immediate functional utility. It does not secure food, construct shelter, or defend a territory. It is an activity pursued entirely for its own inherent satisfaction, serving as a behavioral luxury that is almost exclusively found in organisms possessing highly developed, complex brains that require continuous stimulation. Young crows engage in play constantly, filling their days with spontaneous interactions. They tumble playfully through the leaves with their siblings, grab random objects like shiny pebbles or twigs just to manipulate them without any physical goal, and engage in intricate mock combat. They chase one another through the branches and wrestle on the forest floor, utilizing a specific low-frequency vocalization that is entirely separate from their standard social calls. But this playfulness is not merely a transient phase of youth. Adult crows continue to seek out recreation throughout their entire lives. Naturalists have documented adult corvids performing behaviors that can only be described as purely recreational. They have been observed repeatedly sliding down steep, snow-covered rooftops, only to climb back to the apex to repeat the descent. They will carry small objects to great heights, drop them into the empty air, and then dive in a breathtaking, vertical stoop to catch the item in their bill just before it strikes the ground below, repeating the game over and over into the deepening twilight. Beyond the acrobatics of sliding down frosty roofs, adult crows frequently indulge in moments of sheer, uncalculated whimsy. They have been observed suspending themselves completely upside down from slender branches, gripping the bark with their powerful talons for no discernible structural purpose other than the unique perspective it provides. Even more astonishing is their penchant for hitching rides on the physical frames of other species. Naturalists have documented crows casually perching on the backs of grazing deer, resting sheep, and in one spectacular instance, an airborne bald eagle. While the unwilling hosts clearly manifest their irritation at these uninvited passengers, the crows appear entirely undeterred, maintaining their balance with a stoic, playful nonchalance. This spirit of aerial recreation is shared deeply by their larger corvid cousins, the ravens. In the midst of violent coastal gales, ravens will intentionally launch themselves into the strongest atmospheric currents, allowing the heavy gusts to flip them over and blow them backward across the sky. They will tumble through the turbulence, loop back around, and throw themselves back into the teeth of the wind over and over again. Evolutionary biologists have scrutinized this behavior for hidden survival functions, such as flight training or parasite removal. Yet no practical purpose has ever been verified. The only conclusion that satisfies the empirical evidence is that the birds are simply having fun. To observe play in the animal kingdom is to witness a profound neurological milestone. At a bare minimum, it signals that an organism possesses a distinct cognitive surplus. Its immediate survival needs for fuel, hydration, and shelter have been fully met, leaving a reservoir of free energy to be spent on non-essential behavior. Many contemporary behaviorists argue that play implies an even deeper internal reality, an active manifestation of curiosity, environmental engagement, and a subjective state that functions precisely like joy. While empirical science cannot definitively measure the exact emotional spectrum swirling inside a crow as it navigates its backyard games, the behavior defies any purely mechanistic explanation. Crows are driven by an innate curiosity that operates with its own independent momentum. When introduced to a novel object, they do not flee. Instead, they execute a cautious yet highly persistent investigation. They approach the unfamiliar item from multiple geometric angles, tilting their heads, tapping it with their bills, and turning it over to analyze its properties. This inquisitiveness extends far beyond the practical necessity of uncovering new food sources or identifying hidden threats. The crow explores simply because its mind is inherently drawn to the unusual, the unmapped, and the interesting. There is a beautifully recognizable quality to this behavior. It is not that crows are striving to be human. Their evolutionary path is entirely their own, but rather that beneath their feathered, ancient form, their actions rhyme with our own experience. We are witnessing a consciousness that finds the universe fascinating, a mind that actively hunts for novelty and finds solace in play. A deep, comforting heaviness is settling over your physical body now, anchoring you to this moment of complete serenity. Allow this restful weight to radiate outward, smoothing the tension from your arms, releasing your hands to the fingertips, loosening your hips, and traveling down through the length of your legs to your feet. Everything is softening. Everything is finding its proper place of rest. The internal architecture of Corvid society is governed by a beautifully flexible framework known to sociologists as a fission-fusion system. Rather than operating within a rigid, unchanging pack structure, a crow community breathes in and out, constantly expanding and contracting to meet the shifting demands of the environment. During the quiet hours of daylight, the collective dissolves into smaller, highly autonomous family units or solitary foragers, each managing the specific boundaries of their localized territories. But as the shadows lengthen, or when an abundant food resource is discovered, or a shared ecological threat emerges, these scattered fragments seamlessly fuse back together into a massive, cooperative entity. Within the sanctuary of the immediate family, the social bonds are incredibly enduring. The cooperative network extends far beyond the shared architecture of the nest box. Crow families maintain distinct, recognizable relationships that persist across vast stretches of time. Individual family members can identify one another's unique facial features and vocal signatures, even after prolonged periods of physical separation. Should a conflict arise with an outside flock, family members will instantly align themselves to offer mutual defense. They share resources and negotiate access to food through a complex system of subtle vocalizations and posturing that researchers are still working to fully decode. Beyond the immediate lineage, crows actively cultivate relationships with entirely unrelated individuals, forming what can accurately be described as friendships. Bonded pairs or close companions will engage in allopreening. the meticulous, mutual preening of another bird's head and neck feathers. In the matrix of social biology, this gentle grooming functions as a powerful mechanism for reducing stress and reinforcing trust between allies. Conversely, they also maintain a clear memory of their rivals, tracking individual identities within a dense social web and navigating these politics with immense sophistication. Corvid hierarchies involve shifting alliances and clear structures of dominance, while high-ranking individuals secure the prime roosting spots and first access to choice food. Lower-ranking birds skillfully bypass these restrictions through stealth or by forming clever coalitions. Two subordinate crows will frequently coordinate their movements to distract and outmaneuver a single dominant bird. The social calculus is constant, fluid, and tracked with the exact same precision the crow applies to the rest of its reality. Exhale fully now, letting the breath leave your body completely, and then simply wait for it to return on its own terms. There is no need to direct this rhythm. Your body possesses an ancient wisdom, a memory of how to breathe that requires no conscious effort. Just rest quietly within that rise and fall. The language of the crow is an intricate tapestry that human science is only beginning to unravel. While we have mapped their 25 core vocalizations and identified their regional dialects, the true depth of their acoustic communication remains an open frontier. Crows do not merely make noise to fill the silence of the woods. Their calls are information-dense broadcasts. They can modulate the pitch, rhythm, speed, and repetition of a note to convey highly specific data regarding the exact nature of a terrestrial threat, the location of a perishable resource, or changes in their social standing. This acoustic vocabulary is augmented by a rich system of visual body language. Every nuance of a crow's posture carries a distinct meaning that is instantly read by the rest of the flock. A crow that has intentionally fluffed its contour feathers while standing tall is projecting a completely different social signal than one that has sleeked its plumage and adopted a low, crouched stance. The precise angle of the wings, the orientation of the bill, and the subtle raising of the feathers around the throat all form a visible vocabulary that maintains order within the community. Yet, beyond these observable calls and physical gestures, there exists a subtler, almost ethereal flow of information through the flock. Field researchers have frequently noted that when a single crow at the distant perimeter of a large gathering detects a subtle change in the environment, a silent ripple of absolute attention instantly cascades through the entire group. Birds that are completely out of visual or acoustic range of the original stimulus will simultaneously orient their bodies toward the point of interest. Without a shared spoken language, the collective functions as a single, distributed sensory network, a beautiful tapestry of many eyes and many ears feeding into one unified awareness. There is something profoundly meditative in this design. The individual crow allows its own awareness to be shaped by the movement of the whole, transforming the flock into a collective mind made of many smaller minds, moving in perfect harmony across the sky. Your own mind is growing beautifully quiet now, matching the stillness of the evening roost. The thoughts that float across your awareness are light, brief, and entirely unattached. They drift into view and dissolve just as easily, like solitary birds crossing a pale evening sky, here for a moment, and then gone into the quiet night. Crows and ravens have been woven into the fabric of human mythology and cultural history for as long as we have possessed the capacity to tell stories. In the stark traditions of Norse mythology, the Allfather Odin was perpetually accompanied by a pair of magnificent ravens named Hugin and Munin. Their names translate literally to thought and memory. Every dawn, these birds were released to fly across the vast expanse of the earth, gathering the secret movements of the world before returning at twilight to perch upon Odin's shoulders, whispering their gathered wisdom into his ears. They were the physical embodiment of perception and knowledge, and the choice of Corvids for this divine role was never accidental. The ancient peoples who forged these legends lived in intimate proximity to the wild. They watched the crows, recognized their unnatural intelligence, and placed them at the right hand of the divine. Along the mist-shrouded coastlines of the Pacific Northwest, indigenous traditions celebrate Raven not as a mere bird, but as the great trickster and creator of the cosmos. He is depicted as a being of immense cleverness, boundless curiosity, and insatiable appetite, a cosmic force responsible for stealing the sun from a hidden box and gifting light to a dark world, shaping the geometry of the rivers, and transforming the landscape through his unpredictable exploits. Raven is neither purely benevolent nor explicitly malevolent. He is a force of beautiful, chaotic wisdom that cannot be neatly categorized by human morality. This mythical character aligns with uncanny accuracy with our modern behavioral observations of the Corvid family. Their profound opportunism, their strategic thievery, and their relentless intellectual curiosity. In the cultural memory of Japan, the crow is revered as a sacred messenger tied directly to the sun and the alignment of good fortune. The mythical Yatagarasu, a majestic three-legged crow, stands as a timeless symbol of divine guidance, navigating lost travelers through perilous landscapes with an innate moral authority. Similarly, the augurs of ancient Rome looked to the skies to read the flight patterns and sharp calls of crows, associating them with Apollo, the god of prophecy and foresight. Pliny the Elder, one of the ancient world's most dedicated naturalists, wrote of Corvid intelligence with profound, unmistakable admiration, documenting their cleverness as a primary example of non-human wisdom. Across every epoch and every shoreline, human consciousness has looked out into the twilight, locked eyes with the crow, and recognized that we were looking at an ancient peer. The ancient tapestries of human storytelling intersect with empirical truth in the celebrated pages of Aesop's fables. For centuries, the tale of the thirsty crow and the tall pitcher, wherein the bird, unable to reach the water at the bottom of a deep vessel, meticulously drops stones into the container one by one until the liquid rises to an accessible height, was praised as a poetic, purely imaginative symbol of animal ingenuity. Yet, in a breathtaking moment of scientific validation in 2009, cognitive biologists proved that this fable was a precise reflection of reality. When tested under rigorous laboratory conditions, rooks, the highly social European relatives of true crows, replicated the fable perfectly. Faced with a narrow tube of water containing a floating, out-of-reach food reward, the birds selected stones of the appropriate volume and systematically dropped them into the cylinder, measuring the rising waterline until they could secure the prize. It stands as a profound testament to the natural world, a beautiful instance of life imitating myth, or perhaps a sign that the ancient storytellers were simply remembering what centuries of careful, patient watching had already revealed. Parallel to their reputation for cleverness, crows have long been cast as heavy symbols of omen and transition across a vast mosaic of global cultures. In old European folklore, the solitary silhouette of a crow or raven perched upon a window frame was whispered to be a somber harbinger of approaching mortality. In countless global traditions, these birds are recognized as creatures of the twilight, existing within the liminal spaces, the thresholds, and the invisible boundaries that separate the living from the dead. This deep-seated cultural association is not a product of supernatural malice, but rather a direct reflection of the crow's natural ecological role. As highly efficient scavenging feeders, crows are naturally drawn to the quiet sites where life has transitioned into stillness. In the deep centuries before germ theory, long before humanity understood the invisible mechanics of disease and how it spread across communities, the gathering of silent black birds before or immediately after a passing would have felt chillingly predictive, a living omen. Yet, the crow was never an architect of doom. It was simply doing what its lineage has always done, paying absolute attention to the environment, being present, and watching the changing world with a quiet, unwavering gaze. The comforting weight of your eyelids is a completely natural surrender to the evening now. There is no longer any reason to resist the pull of the dark. Simply allow them to close. Let the quiet darkness behind your vision become soft, expansive, and deeply welcoming. You are moving steadily toward a profound rest, drifting smoothly like a solitary boat untethered from the shore, floating into a calm, open sea. To truly understand the depth of their perception, one must look closely at the extraordinary architecture of a crow's eye. Relative to the overall dimensions of its skull, the eye of a corvid is immensely large and positioned laterally on the side of the head. This specific placement grants the bird a sweeping, panoramic field of monocular vision, allowing each eye to scan a vast arc of the surrounding landscape completely independently of the other. However, as their gaze shifts forward, these independent visual fields overlap, creating a narrow, highly focused zone of binocular vision directly in front of the bill. This binocular slice is the tool they use for intricate physical tasks that demand absolute depth perception, such as catching a moving object midair, manipulating a delicate tool, or analyzing the fine geometry of an unfamiliar item. Yet, what a crow perceives when it looks across a clearing is fundamentally different from the world compiled by human consciousness. Their highly evolved visual system possesses a profound sensitivity to ultraviolet light, a vibrant spectrum completely invisible to the human eye. To our limited sight, a crow's plumage is a uniform, heavy black. But under ultraviolet wavelengths, those very same feathers are revealed to be intricately patterned with complex, glowing markings that shift with every movement. The crows see this hidden tapestry clearly. They utilize these ultraviolet signatures to rapidly assess the precise health, age, social standing, and individual identity of their peers. The bird you perceive as a simple silhouette of shadow is seen by its community as something infinitely richer, more varied, and overflowing with visual information. This avian perspective is further deepened by their status as tetrachromats. While the human retina is built upon 3 types of color-sensing cone cells, the crow possesses a 4th, specialized cone. This addition grants them a visual experience of the universe that human imagination can only vaguely approximate. A landscape painted in colors we cannot name, with sharp distinctions and deep visual nuances embedded in every leaf, stone, and shadow. Crows employ this heightened visual acuity with immense precision. In controlled discrimination trials, they distinguished between highly similar geometric patterns and subtle shapes with an accuracy that frequently surpasses that of advanced primates. They noticed the most minute changes in their immediate ecosystem, detecting microscopic shifts that completely escaped casual human attention. A crow that regularly visits your garden does not just hold a vague, general awareness of the yard. It possesses a highly detailed, precise, and continuously updated internal map of that space. It registers instantly if a stone has been turned or a twig has shifted. There is something quietly humbling about being observed so precisely by a consciousness that perceives colors you will never see, processing a reality far more detailed than the one we walk through. The crow looking down at you from the branch sees a world you cannot fully imagine. The breath continues its slow, effortless journey, moving in and out, with a rhythm as natural as the turning of the earth. The darkness behind your eyes remains soft, safe, and profoundly welcoming. You are resting deeply now, cradled by the quiet of the night. One of the most philosophically compelling dimensions of Corvid intellect is their demonstrated capacity for genuine insight rather than a simple reliance on trial and error. Across the animal kingdom, the vast majority of learning is achieved through a slow, mechanistic process of trial and error. An organism attempts a physical action, experiences failure, adjusts its position slightly, and tries again, eventually arriving at a successful outcome through blind repetition and behavioral reinforcement. While this method is evolutionarily effective, it is fundamentally slow, requiring no actual understanding of the underlying mechanics, only persistence and memory. Insight, by contrast, is the sudden resolution of a complex problem without any intermediate period of failure. It is the pure, cognitive aha moment, a swift, internal reorganization of mental data that allows a completely novel solution to emerge fully formed within the mind before any physical action is taken. This capacity for spontaneous insight was long defended as a uniquely human crown, a cognitive boundary line that separated us from the rest of creation. It was later observed within the great apes, and more recently, documented in breathtaking detail among crows. In landmark behavioral studies, New Caledonian crows were presented with intricate, multi-step structural problems they had never previously encountered in their lives. Astonishingly, several individuals solved these complex puzzles on their very first attempt, without any prior experience with the individual components. The birds did not engage in frantic, random movements. Instead, they paused, stood perfectly still for a prolonged interval, and appeared to systematically assess the physical parameters of the situation. Only after this quiet period of mental simulation did they act, directly, smoothly, and correctly executing the solution. This is the definition of insight: the internal click of understanding shifting into place within the quiet chambers of the mind before the physical frame ever moves. Closely bound to this gift of insight is their profound grasp of causal relationships. Crows do not merely form learned associations. They build functional, internal models of how physical causality operates in the material world. When confronted with entirely novel mechanical devices, they can frequently deduce the inner workings of the apparatus through observation alone. Before making physical contact, they will stand at a distance, watching how a specific lever moves or how a weight drops, modeling the physics within their own minds before executing a targeted action. This proves that the Corvid mind is not a simple, passive archive of conditioned reflexes. It is an active laboratory that holds an intuitive map of physical laws. This internal framework allows the crow to reason through completely unprecedented situations, predicting physical outcomes before testing them in reality, choosing to truly understand the world rather than merely reacting to it. The deep quiet of the late-night hours holds a very particular, sacred quality. You know this stillness intimately if you have ever found yourself awake during these solitary moments, when the hurried world of humanity has completely fallen away and the landscape outside is utterly motionless. There is a profound softness to this specific quiet, a deep, restorative peace that exists only in the dark. Rest completely inside this stillness now. Breathe within its gentle embrace, and let it hold you secure against the night. This journey into self-awareness deepens further as science explores whether crows can recognize their own forms within the silver surface of a mirror. The classic mirror self-recognition test, the gold standard of comparative psychology, involves placing an odorless, non-irritating mark on a part of an animal's body that it cannot perceive directly without a reflection, then observing whether the subject utilizes a mirror to investigate the alteration. Animals that pass this test are widely understood to possess a highly sophisticated form of self-awareness. Humans pass this threshold, as do great apes, social dolphins, and majestic elephants. And remarkably, magpies, the vibrant, close corvid cousins of true crows, have passed this test definitively. For crows themselves, the empirical data remains beautifully nuanced, partly because their highly complex visual systems and specific social structures mean that human testing protocols do not always translate perfectly to their experience. Yet, when introduced to mirrors, crows consistently manifest a prolonged, focused interest in their reflections that goes far beyond the baseline aggression or curiosity displayed toward an unfamiliar bird. They engage in highly specific, repetitive movements that suggest an active testing of the reflection's synchronicity. While cognitive researchers continue to refine their methods to better match the unique sensory reality of the crow, this line of inquiry points toward a staggering possibility. If an organism can recognize its reflection, it must hold an internal model of itself as a distinct, independent entity existing within the physical world. It understands that the image in the glass is its own form, successfully locating its identity within a visual field. This self-concept is not merely an intellectual curiosity. It is the vital foundation upon which their entire social architecture is built. A creature that conceives of itself as a distinct entity can easily deduce that other living beings are also distinct entities, operating with their own separate perspectives, unique knowledge, and independent intentions. In this light, the crow is revealed to be far more than a clever bird navigating the trees. It is an organism possessed of an intricate, deep inner life, a consciousness complex enough to hold an enduring sense of self. What that awareness feels like from the inside, what the subjective experience of being a crow truly encompasses, is a question that human language cannot answer. But the fact that we can ask the question with genuine scientific validity is a marvel in itself. Your mind has grown beautifully, completely quiet now. The thoughts that remain are soft, infrequent, and faint, like the very last fading murmurs of the evening roost before the canopy falls entirely silent. A solitary call echoes across the dark, a gentle rustle of a wing adjusting against the bark, and then nothing but the perfect quiet of the woods. You're almost there. Crows are built for endurance, living surprisingly long, meaningful lives across the passing seasons. Within the unpredictable currents of the wild, an American crow frequently reaches an age of 7 or 8 years, and often much longer. In fact, the oldest documented wild American crow tracked by ornithologists survived in its natural habitat for nearly 30 years. An extraordinary, profound lifespan for an organism of its physical size. When protected within peaceful sanctuaries, free from the heavy pressures of predation and environmental stress, crows have been known to live comfortably well into their late 20s. In the calculus of evolutionary biology, such a prolonged lifespan consistently correlates with a slow, highly deliberate reproductive strategy and a massive, long-term parental investment. This is the enduring wisdom of the crow. They do not scatter their energy across large, careless clutches of numerous eggs. Instead of scattering their vital life energy across large, careless clutches of numerous eggs, crows invest with absolute intensity in each individual offspring. They dedicate several years of their long lives to a continuous process of teaching, while the young birds remain close to the family unit, spending years learning. This slow, deliberate pace of life is a mechanical necessity for their survival. There is simply too much to learn, too much social complexity to successfully navigate, and too many specialized physical skills to develop for a short-lived animal to manage. Neurobiologists believe this extended timeline is connected to their high intelligence in a genuine, causal relationship. Large, densely packed brains require a luxurious amount of time to develop their intricate neural pathways, just as highly complex behavioral patterns require time to be learned and refined. Deep social relationships, the very framework of their communities, require seasons of consistent interaction to build and maintain. The entirety of a crow's life is structured around the profound luxury of time, of slow learning, of accumulated experience, and of relationships that deepen over decades. When your gaze falls upon an old crow, a bird that has navigated the currents of the world for several years, you are observing a living repository of localized knowledge. This single bird has mapped its world with exquisite detail. It knows every contour of its territory intimately, understands the internal dynamics of its social group in depth, recognizes the shifting patterns of the seasons, predicts the behaviors of local predators, and remembers the best feeding locations over a vast geographic area. It carries this entire library of experience silently within its black-feathered body, perched quietly on a high telephone wire against the evening sky. This profound intellectual depth allows crows to adapt with remarkable fluidity to entirely new environments and unprecedented challenges. This inherent flexibility is the precise reason they do not merely survive, but spectacularly thrive within human-dominated landscapes, where so many other wild species falter and fade when their natural habitats are altered by human activity. Crows are ultimate generalists, capable of digesting an enormous variety of nutritional sources. They are opportunists, swiftly exploiting new resources the moment they become available. And they are lifelong learners, constantly developing entirely new behaviors in response to shifting conditions. Urban crows face daily pressures that would have been completely alien to their ancestors. The rushing metal of cars, the humming grid of electrical infrastructure, towering human buildings as nesting sites, massive streams of food waste, novel domestic predators, and a complex, noisy acoustic environment. Yet, they navigate every single element with absolute poise. They do not just tolerate the concrete landscape, they actively master it. They use the weight of our vehicles to crack open hard shells, anchor their nests securely on the high ledges of our architecture, extract sustenance from complex human waste streams, and learn the precise rhythms of our daily activities, working skillfully within our schedules. This level of behavioral plasticity is, in itself, a monumental cognitive achievement. To adapt seamlessly to a changing environment requires the advanced mental ability to learn new rules, to completely abandon old habits that no longer serve a purpose, and to develop entirely new strategies from scratch. Crows achieve this across individual lifetimes, and they achieve it across generations, passing information about new environments culturally from parent to offspring. The night has grown deep now, deep, perfectly still, and intensely comfortable. Your breath has found its most natural, effortless cadence, coming and going in a slow, soothing loop. There is nothing you need to achieve right now, no problems you need to solve. You only need to exist here, resting securely in the quiet, wrapped in the soft velvet of the dark. In the coldest climates of the earth, crows face the onset of winter with a kind of quiet, problem-solving dignity. In regions where the winters are long, dark, and unforgiving, they must manage the immense challenge of securing nutrition when the ground is frozen solid, when their usual food sources are buried beneath deep blankets of snow, and when the short days burn through metabolic calories at a rapid rate. They survive these lean months through a sophisticated combination of instinct and learned strategies. The practice of caching becomes their primary lifeline during this time. Throughout the golden months of autumn, crows intensify their hiding behaviors, systematically burying stores of food against the frozen months ahead. They remember these hidden caches with remarkable accuracy, even when the entire landscape has been altered by a heavy snowfall. They know exactly where they placed a resource months prior, returning to the precise spot to dig through the snow and reclaim it. Their massive communal winter roosts further ensure their survival through the dark season. There is immense physical warmth found within their numbers, and information regarding hidden food sources flows freely through the collective. A single crow that has experienced a successful day of foraging will display a vibrant energy upon returning to the roost, attracting a following of other birds the next morning. The group functions far better at locating food in difficult times than any solitary individual ever could alone. Furthermore, crow families form a kind of collective, multi-generational memory around seasonal survival patterns. A family group that has weathered many winters within a specific territory has accumulated a highly detailed map of where food remains accessible during the coldest months, which agricultural barns contain grains, which specific areas thaw first under the pale sun, and which human waste routes run on which days of the week. This knowledge is real, specific, and passed down directly as younger family members shadow the movements of the experienced elders. The winter is harsh, yet the crow navigates its depths with sheer intelligence. There is something in this winter behavior that touches upon a deeply human chord. The gathering of stores, the huddling together for warmth, the sharing of survival information, and the absolute reliance on accumulated experience to guide the collective through difficult times. These are not mere metaphors. It is simply the crow doing what it must to survive, yet it rhymes beautifully with our own history. The crow has been our close neighbor for an incredibly long time, long enough to be woven into the bedrock of our myths, long enough to be recognized across cultures as something sacred, and long enough that our shared relationship feels old, layered, and strangely mutual. Sleep is incredibly close to you now. You can feel its warm presence brushing against the edges of your awareness, soft and welcoming. Let yourself slide gently toward it. There is nothing left to resist, nothing you need to hold on to, just a slow, peaceful drift into the quiet. As we look even deeper into their inner lives, cognitive science has begun to explore the reality that crows experience what can accurately be described as emotion. This remains a delicate, carefully guarded area of zoological research because the internal feelings of an animal cannot be verified with absolute, empirical certainty. We cannot simply ask them what they feel. We can only monitor their behaviors, track their physiology, and draw careful inferences. Yet, the data gathered from Corvid research is so suggestive that the leading minds in animal cognition take their emotional depth with immense seriousness. Crows manifest clear, physiological stress responses, such as elevated cortisol levels and marked behavioral changes, in specific situations that would cause deep distress in a human being. Sudden separation from a lifelong partner, an immediate threat to their offspring, or systematic exclusion from the social group. Their physical bodies respond to the trauma. There is an internal experience unfolding that goes infinitely deeper than a simple, hardwired avoidance reflex. Conversely, crows also display what scientists call positive affect, the neurological state that functions precisely like joy or contentment, within the context of play, successful problem solving, and close social bonding. The bird that flies up to the top of a snowy roof simply to slide down again is not operating under stress. It is engaging in an activity that produces, within its complex nervous system, a sensation so rewarding that it keeps returning for more. Remarkably, research into Corvid psychology indicates that these birds can be directly affected by the emotional states of their companions. A nearby bird that manifests intense distress will rapidly produce behavioral and physiological changes in the crows observing it, causing them to adopt a vigilant, supportive posture. Similarly, a companion feeding calmly spreads a wave of tranquility through the immediate flock. This phenomenon of emotional contagion, the subconscious spreading of affective states between separate individuals, is the primary evolutionary precursor to empathy. It is the very cognitive foundation from which more advanced forms of caring for others can develop. None of these discoveries prove that crows possess a consciousness identical to our own. That question remains beautifully open, as it does for all living creatures. But it reveals that the inner world of a crow is never an empty, mechanical void. There is a profound reality to being a crow, navigating a complex world it understands with deep intelligence, maintaining relationships it values across a long lifetime, and experiencing existence in ways we are only beginning to glimpse. A crow perched silently on a high branch at dusk is never just a black shape against the fading sky. It is a creature with a specific history, with deep relationships, with vivid memories, and with a complex inner world, looking out at the exact same darkening world we look at. From a vantage point we can only begin to imagine. The night is completely still now. Your room is wrapped in an absolute, gentle quiet. Your breath is slow, deep, and beautifully heavy. Everything outside of this immediate moment can wait until the morning sun rises. There is only this, the quiet, the dark, and the slow, easy breath. Crows navigate across vast distances with breathtaking precision. Although they do not engage in the sweeping, continental migrations common to many waterfowl, they range widely within their expansive home territories and hold an incredibly detailed spatial knowledge of massive geographical areas. Modern research utilizing micro-GPS tracking devices has revealed that individual crows cover surprisingly large distances in their daily movements, particularly during the winter months when traveling back and forth between their foraging grounds and their massive communal roosts. They execute these daily journeys with flawless accuracy, taking the most energetically efficient routes, remembering individual landmarks, and adapting instantly to sudden changes in the landscape. To achieve this, crows utilize a complex matrix of navigational cues. Visual landmarks form the foundation of their travel. They map the geography of their territories in high-resolution detail, using prominent trees, architectural structures, and river pathways to orient themselves across miles of sky. Furthermore, research suggests that magnetic sensing plays a quiet role in their orientation, much as it does in long-distance migratory birds, allowing them to maintain their heading even when early morning mists or heavy winter clouds obscure their visible landmarks. Social information forms the final layer of this navigation system. Younger or less experienced birds will simply shadow the flight paths of older crows who know the ancient ways, or who have located a stable food source, or who are returning from a highly productive territory. There is something profoundly poetic about the crows' relationship with space. The way they claim the open sky as a grand, familiar map, tracing invisible pathways through the twilight, guiding one another home across the darkening world. The crow maps the geography of existence through a completely separate dimensional lens than our own. It experiences the earth from above, from below, from the high vantage of wind-swept perches, from dense winter roosts, and through the kinetic flow of soaring flight. Its internal landscape is a rich, three-dimensional matrix woven from fluid memories, geographic detail, and complex social information. The terrain the crow occupies is the exact same physical space we tread, yet it is processed at an entirely different scale, through unfamiliar senses, and by a deeply contrasting form of intelligence. To sit quietly in a clearing where crows live is to become suddenly aware that the world you assume you are experiencing is also somebody else's world entirely. A crow owns that space with an absolute validity that differs from human ownership, but is no less real. It understands its own localized history, its intricate social web, its seasonal resources, and its hidden dangers. It is at home there, fully, deeply, and completely, in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with human presence or absence. The crow was navigating those branches long before you arrived, and in many cases, its lineage will be watching that same soil long after you leave. The night is filled with an immense, textured quiet now, a soft, deep, welcoming dark that folds around your awareness. Your physical body possesses an innate wisdom. It knows precisely how to rest, and it is surrendering to that process in this very moment. Allow yourself to trust that natural rhythm. Let the quiet knowing be enough. As the heavy demands of the breeding season draw to a close in the late summer, crows undergo a profound structural renewal known as a complete molt. Every single feather across their physical frame is systematically shed and replaced. Old, weathered, and frayed plumage drops away, and fresh, pristine feathers grow in their stead. This metamorphic process is beautifully gradual. The crow does not shed its coat all at once, which would leave it dangerously flightless and vulnerable to the summer chill. Instead, the molt progresses in a highly synchronized sequence. Different feather tracks are targeted at different times, ensuring the bird retains its flawless aerodynamics and thermal regulation throughout the transition. Following the completion of the molt, the crow emerges entirely fresh and perfect. The structural iridescence of its plumage reaches its absolute peak of vivid clarity. The black feathers possess a deep, velvet obsidian quality, and when the light catches them at the proper angle, the hidden midnight blues, purples, and rich green tones become visible with a brilliance that was lost when the coat was worn. A crow in fresh molt is an exquisite organism to observe, not beautiful in the conventional, loud sense of brilliant tropical coloration or ostentatious form, but beautiful in a much quieter, minimalist way. It is the beauty of a flawless, absolute black. It is the beauty of simplicity when it has achieved absolute perfection. There is something deeply meditative in this annual renewal. The crow completely recreates its physical interface with the world, shedding every mark of the past year, starting anew with fresh feathers, yet carrying its entire library of knowledge, memory, and relationships forward underneath the new coat. The crow continues and the crow renews, both at the exact same time. Deep within the anatomy of its gaze, the crow possesses a specialized third eyelid, known as the nictitating membrane. This is a translucent, horizontal film that sweeps seamlessly across the surface of the eye from the inner corner outward. It functions as a clear protective visor, cleaning the cornea and shielding it from debris without blocking the bird's vision entirely. When a crow stoops to drink from a fresh spring, or maneuvers through dense, thorny brush, or bends close to analyze a minute object, this membrane flicks rapidly across the eye. From an external perspective, it appears as a pale, ghostly veil briefly crossing the dark depth of the pupil, a phantom blink. This anatomical detail is a quiet reminder of the crow's profound evolutionary divergence from us. For all their striking cognitive similarities, their overlapping capacities for memory, social manipulation, and abstract problem-solving, the crow is built differently. It perceives reality through a different apparatus. It steps through the world with a different physical momentum. The similarities we discover are the result of evolutionary convergence. Completely different lineages traveling down separate pathways over hundreds of millions of years, yet arriving at identical cognitive strategies to solve the universal challenges of being a complex, social creature in a complex world. This convergence is its own magnificent marvel, that minds separated by deep time should find the exact same solutions. The shared necessity of surviving in a social landscape, of tracking who holds what information, of planning through sequential steps, and of forging relationships that endure across lifetimes has produced rhyming minds. Different vessels, but the same cognitive music. The great dark of the night has become completely motionless now. You are entirely at rest within its safety. Your physical frame has given itself over to the comfort of the bed, resting heavy, still, and warm. Somewhere in the shadows outside your window, a crow perches securely among the high branches, its dark eyes closed, its fresh feathers fluffed against the cool air, resting precisely as you are resting. In recent years, behavioral economists and neuroscientists have studied corvids extensively to understand the mechanics of decision-making under conditions of deep uncertainty. How does a conscious mind determine its path when the outcome of an action cannot be guaranteed? When one choice offers a massive, high-risk reward and another guarantees a smaller, conservative yield. Crows handle these economic trade-offs with an intricate calculations that directly mirror human behavior. They do not operate like simplistic, mathematical calculators maximizing raw expected value. Instead, their choices are highly sensitive to context, to immediate past experiences, and to their current internal state, shifting fluidly depending on whether they are hungry or sated, stressed or secure. Their decisions morph alongside their circumstances, displaying a rich, internal model of the world and a precise awareness of their own immediate needs. This analytical calculus is deeply influenced by social information. When tracking choices within a flock, researchers noted that if a dominant, high-status crow selected a specific option while avoiding another, The observing crows immediately catalog that choice as vital data, adjusting their own economic decisions to match the wisdom of the leader. Social learning is seamlessly woven into every single action the crow takes. The bird does not look out at a world of raw, unlinked physical sensations. It moves through a landscape that is saturated with social meaning, filtered continuously through the matrix of long-term relationships, vivid memories, and deep expectations built up over years of quiet observation. Their universe is as deeply social as our own. There is a profound, unmatched peacefulness that takes hold during the deepest part of the night, when the frantic energy of the waking world has completely dissolved and the landscape is entirely still. The only remaining sounds are the small, rhythmic settling of the house or the distant, soft murmur of the wind through the trees. Your physical body recognizes this hour. Every cell within your framework was engineered for this specific rest. Let it happen naturally. Simply let go. The voice of the crow is an instrument of remarkable, hidden complexity. That iconic carrying caw we explored is merely the threshold of a vast vocal system. The classic call changes its entire meaning based on subtle shifts in modulation. A rapid, accelerating series of notes communicates an entirely different message than a slow, methodically spaced sequence. A high-pitched tone carries an urgency that is absent from a low-frequency click. The precise length of the sound, the number of structural repetitions, and the presence of introductory notes all alter the data being broadcast. When a crow listens to a call echoing through the woods, it is parsing all of these variables simultaneously. It recognizes the specific identity of the speaker. It knows instantly whether the voice belongs to a trusted family member or an encroaching stranger, decoding the acoustic geometry of the sound to determine its immediate response. Among their most beautiful, evocative vocalizations is a sound wildlife researchers refer to as the rattle call. This is a low-frequency, highly complex, clicking sound that stands in stark, beautiful contrast to the heavy resonance of their standard caw. It is an acoustic signature used exclusively during close, intimate contact between individuals who share a deep social bond, lifelong partners or immediate family members resting side by side. It is a strictly private conversation, a soft melody that belongs entirely to the relationship, never meant to carry across long distances, engineered only for the companion standing inches away. If you have ever sat perfectly still within an ancient grove, remaining quiet enough for long enough, you may have been fortunate enough to overhear this private language, the low, tender murmurs crows share when they are completely at ease. It is a sound of absolute comfort. It is the music of two entities who know each other deeply, sitting together in the fading amber light of a late afternoon, completely secure in their shared quiet. The sound of the massive roost settling into the dark branches at dusk follows a beautiful, predictable architecture. It commences with a great, overlapping chorus of thousands of voices, a dense, communal conversation that saturates the canopy. And then, as the darkness seals the sky, the volume begins to thin. One solitary voice calls out, followed by a second, then a long, heavy pause. One final, quiet note echoes through the dark branches, and then absolute silence takes the woods. The roost is at rest. That sudden silence following the gathering of the day is immense, protective, and profoundly peaceful. Slide smoothly into that silence now, drifting down into the soft, comforting dark behind your eyes. Your physical body is beautifully heavy, perfectly warm, and entirely still. Sleep has arrived. It has been waiting for you in the quiet branches all along, and you have finally arrived home. The crow navigates the uncertainty of the world with absolute intelligence, and you can rest knowing its watch is complete. Let yourself drift away. Sleep now. Sleep. This constant mental recalibration, this fluid readiness to revise what it knows in light of what it discovers, stands as one of the ultimate hallmarks of true intelligence. It is not a rigid adherence to fixed, instinctual responses, nor is it a simple reaction to immediate environmental stimuli. Rather, it is an active, ongoing, and deeply intelligent engagement with a complex and ever-shifting world. The life of a corvid is never easy. The winter chill is uncompromising, predators are an ever-present reality, and the competition for resources remains constant. The world the crow occupies demands an unyielding vigilance, an absolute adaptability, and an advanced intelligence. Day after day, season after season, the crow meets these intense ecological demands with a profound competence that, from an external perspective, looks very much like absolute mastery. There is something deeply comforting in this realization, in the image of the crow going about its challenging, intelligent, and socially rich life. There is a profound solace in knowing that somewhere out there, enveloped by the deep dark of a winter canopy, thousands of crows are currently roosting together, pressed warm and close, having successfully navigated another demanding and remarkably full day of existence. They are resting now, replenishing their deep reserves, preparing to do it all again when the dawn breaks. And you are resting too. You are replenishing your own spirit in your warm, secure sanctuary. Allow yourself to let the day go entirely. Let the soft texture of the night hold you secure. You have done enough today. You have managed whatever needed managing. You have thought whatever needed to be thought. And now, like the crow settling into the high branches of the roost, it is time to release all of that cognitive weight and simply rest. The crow's relationship with the surrounding world extends into a fascinating, highly complex web of interspecies interactions. They do not exist in isolation, operating only in relation to their own kind. Rather, they navigate a dense ecosystem of overlapping lives, bringing the exact same sharp intelligence to these external relationships as they do to their own social circles. In many regions of the globe, ravens and crows occupy overlapping territories, creating a dynamic that is intensely complicated. Ravens possess a distinct advantage in sheer physical size, yet crows counter this by being vastly more numerous and highly cooperative when defending a shared resource or space. In areas where both lineages intersect, a constant, low-level atmospheric tension exists. Crows will systematically mob solitary ravens, while ravens will use their superior size to seize caches from crows. Yet, this friction frequently shifts into a state of peaceful coexistence. Individual ravens and crows are regularly observed foraging in close proximity without a single hint of conflict. The relationship is never simplistic or hardwired. It is managed fluidly on a case-by-case, individual-by-individual basis. Even more profound is the ancient relationship corvids maintain with large mammalian apex predators, particularly wolves. In the wild, untouched landscapes of North America and Europe, crows and ravens have been systematically documented trailing wolf packs across miles of snow. The wolves' successful hunts provide an abundant, high-value food source for the birds. Intriguingly, field observations suggest that the birds may actively return the favor, utilizing specific, high-frequency calling patterns to alert the wolf pack to the presence of prey animals that the wolves might otherwise have missed in the dense undergrowth. While behavioral ecologists continue to evaluate whether this constitutes a formalized mutualism, the sheer regularity of the association, the fact that both species actively track and respond to one another's movements, points to an alliance that goes far deeper than mere coincidence. Conversely, their interaction with the great horned owl is defined by an absolute, clear-eyed hostility. The owl represents one of the crow's most formidable predators, hunting under the cover of total darkness when the roost is asleep and most vulnerable. The crows hold a deep memory of this threat. The discovery of a great horned owl during the daylight hours is a monumental event that instantly mobilizes an entire corvid community. The initial sighting triggers an immediate, high-priority mobbing alert. Crows assemble en masse from a wide geographic area, creating a swirling, black vortex above the predator, diving within inches of its feathers while unleashing a relentless barrage of harsh scolding calls. The objective is clear: either force the owl to abandon the territory entirely, or announce its precise coordinates so thoroughly that its vital advantage of nighttime surprise is completely destroyed. The acoustics of this alarm call are so distinct that they draw in neighboring flocks that cannot even see the predator directly. The structure of the sound itself carries the full weight of the danger. Faced with this exhausting, high-decibel psychological pressure, the owl typically surrenders the position and moves on. The individual risk to any single crow is remarkably low, yet the collective benefit to the community is absolute. Another elegant, calculated solution from a species that specializes in elegance. Crows display this same opportunistic intelligence when associating with other species for mutual gain. They are frequently seen shadowing heavy farm machinery, calmly walking behind tractors to harvest the soil and vertebrates disturbed by the tilling blades. They will trail deer and other large herbivores through tall summer grass or deep winter drifts, expertly capturing the small animals and insects flushed from hiding by the mammal's heavy hooves. They gather instinctively around any center of activity where movement is likely to expose a hidden resource, always alert, always opportunistic, and always ready to learn. Your eyes are fully closed now, or nearly so, as the heavy atmosphere of the room settles over you. The feeling of absolute relaxation is complete, comfortable, and deep. There is nothing left in the waking world that requires your attention. The crow is tending to its intricate world. You can safely tend to your rest. The presence of the crow in human literature and poetic tradition stretches back as far as the written word exists, serving as a mirror to our own deep fascination. Their place in our cultural life is never incidental. It reflects a long, cross-generational observation of an organism that is genuinely impossible to ignore. Crows demand our attention. Their intelligence is plainly visible in their movements, and their behavior is intricate enough to captivate even the most casual observer. Their willingness to occupy the exact same spaces we build, to watch us as intensely as we watch them, has made them central, evocative characters in the human imagination of the natural world. In Western literature, Edgar Allan Poe's masterpiece, The Raven, stands as perhaps the most famous exploration of this Corvid aura. While centered on the crow's larger cousin, the poem captures something fundamentally true about the family's presence. The bird's persistent repetition of a single phrase, its uncanny watchfulness, and its stark, unblinking intelligence drive the speaker toward a deep psychological reckoning. Poe did not invent a fantastical, mythological creature from a void. He drew directly upon a very real bird, amplifying its actual, stark qualities and pushing them slightly further into the shadows of the human psyche. In the delicate traditions of Japanese haiku and ancient Chinese poetry, crows are treated with a completely different, reverent nuance, appearing as timeless symbols of late autumn, the quiet closing of the day, and the fragile edge where warmth transitions into cold. The image of a solitary crow perched upon a bare, frosted branch against the fading amber light of dusk is a recurring motif in East Asian verse. It captures the absolute essence of that specific transitional hour, the perfect stillness that follows the frantic activity of the day, the sharp dark silhouette etched against a pale sky, and the profound sense of a watchful, calm consciousness witnessing the gathering dark. Across the British Isles, an ancient tradition of counting Corvids as a system of omens has persisted across centuries without ever losing its grip on the cultural imagination. The old rhymes detailing the hidden meanings behind the number of birds sighted on a wire continue to influence how we look at the sky. Even those who claim no belief in ancient superstitions often find themselves automatically counting the silhouettes perched along the roadside. Similarly, William Shakespeare utilized crows and ravens as powerful dramatic devices throughout his tragedies, using their presence in Macbeth, Othello, and the Tempest to signal thresholds of darkness, shifting fates, and elements of the human condition that defy easy language. He wove them into his text because his audience lived close to these birds. The associations were already deeply rooted in the collective memory of a people who had shared the fields with them for generations. In the modern era, the British poet Ted Hughes dedicated an entire, raw sequence of poetry to this creature, elevated as a mythological entity that is part trickster, part ultimate survivor, and part raw intelligence existing at the very heart of creation. Hughes ignored any sentimentalized views of nature, focusing instead on the Corvids' undeniable toughness, its evolutionary adaptability, and its refusal to be tamed by human definitions. His work celebrates the crow as a creature that endures, surviving the changing epochs by looking at the difficult facts of existence without ever flinching. This is precisely what makes the crow so compelling to human culture. It is entirely itself, without apology, thriving in the most difficult conditions, possessing a loyalty to its partner, a devotion to its offspring, and a mastery over its relationships that commands our respect. Let your breathing deepen one final time, a long, slow, magnificent wave of air. Draw it all the way in, filling the spaces of your mind, and then let it release completely, carrying the last remnants of the day away with it. Let the perfect quiet of the night receive you fully. The discovery of this deep Corvid intelligence holds profound consequences for how science defines the very nature of consciousness itself. For generations, a dogmatic assumption existed within cognitive biology that higher-level cognition, the capacity for abstract planning, mirror self-awareness, a theory of mind, and causal reasoning, was an evolutionary impossibility for any creature lacking a complex, layered mammalian neocortex. The bird brain was historically dismissed as a simplistic, reactive organ, hardwired for basic survival and nothing more. Yet, the crow has systematically dismantled these long-held biases. Evolution, in its infinite creativity, arrived at the exact same summit of higher intelligence through a completely different structural pathway. While the Corvid brain lacks the layered neocortex of a primate, it packs its neurons with an extraordinary density into a specialized structure called the nidopallium. It is a masterpiece of biological engineering, a small, hyper-efficient processor that proves complex thought does not require a human shape or a mammalian brain structure to exist. Intelligence is not a solitary peak unique to our lineage. It is a fluid, beautiful phenomenon that sparkles across the tree of life, manifesting in the midnight feathers of the bird watching you from the telephone wire just as deeply as it does within our own minds. Two distinct paths, moving through deep time, arriving at a shared understanding of the world. The quiet of the roost has taken complete hold of the night now. The branches are still, the sky is dark, and the long journey of the day has come to a flawless, peaceful end. There is nothing left to hold on to. Let yourself drift out into the deep, welcoming currents of sleep, resting secure in the knowledge that the world is being watched by old, wise eyes. Sleep now. Let the darkness take you home. The early anatomists who peered into the structures of the brain were deeply bound by the architecture they knew best. When they looked upon the mammalian brain, they observed the magnificent layered expanse of the neocortex, the outer crown of gray matter that, in primates and humans, is the undisputed seat of abstract logic, spatial reasoning, and the highest cognitive computations we know of. Turning their scalpels toward the avian brain, they found no such furrowed, neocortical mantle. Instead, they saw a smoothly organized, clustered interior. Bound by the rigid assumption that intelligence required a mammalian shape, these scientists concluded that the avian brain was a primitive, undeveloped organ, entirely hardwired for automated instinct and devoid of flexible thought. It was during this era of biological arrogance that the phrase bird brain slipped quietly into the human lexicon. forged as a direct insult to imply a creature that was simple, unthinking, and profoundly dense. But evolution refuses to be constrained by human definitions. The ancient assumption of the simple bird brain was thoroughly shattered the moment crows began systematically solving multi-step mechanical puzzles, engineering specialized tools from memory, mapping individual human faces across decades, and demonstrating an advanced, operational theory of mind. Forced to look with infinitely greater nuance, modern neuroanatomists discovered that the avian brain had quietly perfected its own separate crown of higher cognition, a dense, hyper-efficient region known as the nidopallium caudolateral. It is not homologous to the mammalian neocortex. It did not ascend from the same ancestral tissue or trace the same evolutionary history. Yet, it performs the exact same brilliant cognitive functions. It is the specific neural canvas that coordinates highly flexible, learned, and context-sensitive behavior. The precise region that illuminates with metabolic energy the moment a crow engages with a complex, unprecedented problem. This remains one of the most profound, unsettling discoveries in the history of cognitive science. It provides undeniable, empirical proof that higher intelligence is never tied to a singular, privileged anatomical shape. It can blossom from entirely different biological architectures, traveling down wildly divergent evolutionary pathways, within bodies as starkly distinct as a hairless primate and a feathered bird. Mind is not a monoculture with one solitary way of existing in the dark of the universe. It is a universal capacity that life has found multiple separate routes to achieve. The crow's brain and our own arrived at overlapping intellectual summits through completely separate histories, crafting identical cognitive solutions through beautifully different paths. This truth alters everything about how we perceive the distribution of consciousness across the natural world. If the majesty of complex intelligence can awaken through entirely different brain structures in evolutionarily distant lineages, then there may be deep forms of awareness, of vibrant perception, and of something akin to rich inner experience in corners of the cosmos where we have never even thought to look. The crow quietly taught us to look more carefully, and what we discovered when we looked changed the very definition of the mind itself. The internal landscape of your mind is slowing down beautifully now, following the natural cadence that minds always seek at this late hour. The remaining thoughts are loose, weightless, and entirely light, like feathers floating down through the darkness. They demand absolutely nothing from you. They simply drift, spin, and fade into the quiet, the deep, protective, and restful quiet of the late night. Crows and humans have been locked in a state of quiet, mutual observation for as long as our stories have existed. What commenced as a purely practical, opportunistic relationship, crows shadowing the early migrations of human settlements to harvest the food scraps and environmental disturbances that our daily lives inevitably provide, has matured into a profoundly layered psychological history. Crows have adapted to our expanding presence with breathtaking flexibility. They use the infrastructure of our cities as territorial markers, analyze our behavioral patterns, exploit our waste streams with surgical precision, build their nurseries upon the stone ledges of our buildings, and use the heavy wheels of our traffic to crack open the hard shells of their food. And we, in a deep cultural sense, have adapted to them too. We have woven their dark silhouettes into the bedrock of our mythologies, given their movements deep existential meaning, written sweeping poems to capture their essence, and placed them as divine sentinels upon the shoulders of our gods. We have found within their behavior a strange, beautifully distorted mirror that reflects something fundamental about our own nature. Their fierce intelligence, their generational social complexity, their unyielding memory, and their profound capacity for what can only be described as feeling. This long history of mutual watching, two highly intelligent, observant species, sharing the exact same geographic space and deeply noticing one another, has produced an alliance that defies easy language. It is not a standard friendship, though individual humans and crows regularly form bonds of profound trust. It is not a direct partnership, though it contains elements of shared survival. It is something far deeper, a form of mutual acknowledgement, an ancient awareness of being actively seen on both sides of the glass. When a crow turns its head to fix you with its large, dark eye, it is genuinely looking at you. It is actively processing your dimensions, calculating your past behavior, making acute assessments, and determining exactly what you represent. Whether you are a specific threat, a unique opportunity, or simply a neutral element of the landscape to be noted and filed away in its memory. And when you look back, if you gaze with some understanding of the immense cognitive depth hidden beneath those feathers, you are looking at an entity that is executing the exact same calculation. Two distinct intelligences, occupying the same point in space at the exact same moment in time, attending to one another with absolute focus. Separated by the immense evolutionary gulf that divides a human from a bird, yet briefly, brilliantly connected by that spark of mutual attention. It is one of the simplest occurrences on Earth, and it is entirely extraordinary. Your breathing has become immensely gentle now, flowing with a slow, perfectly natural grace. You are no longer thinking about the breath. It is simply happening on its own terms. Your physical frame knows exactly how to navigate this transition into the dark it has always known. Trust the depth of that physical wisdom. Rest quietly inside that soothing rise and fall. Let everything else dissolve away. There are crows resting somewhere near you in the darkness tonight. They are gathered in the high roosting trees of the local park, along the shadowed edge of the woods at the end of your road, or nestled within whatever patch of branches or urban rooftops has become their familiar, nightly sanctuary. They are settled deeply into the dark, their contour feathers fluffed out to trap the warm air against their skin, their dark eyes closed, their breathing perfectly slow. If there are many of them gathered together in the branches, they are bathed in a substantial collective warmth. The shared body heat of hundreds of birds nested within a single canopy creates its own gentle microclimate against the cold night wind. They lean into that comfort, into the safety of their numbers, into the warmth of each other, and into total rest. And as it sleeps, does it dream? Perhaps it does, or perhaps its mind rests in a perfect, silent void. We cannot know for certain. What remains undeniable is that the crow will wake with the arrival of the morning sun, and it will launch itself into the sky. It will watch the earth, it will remember, and it will navigate with characteristic intelligence and absolute composure the beautiful, complex world it calls home. It is the exact same physical world you occupy, seen from a different angle, through different eyes, and from a different height. But it is the same world. There is an immense, comforting peace in that knowledge. The realization that our ordinary streets are surrounded by a tapestry of thinking minds, that the sky above our roofs is continually occupied by a profound intelligence. The crow on the wire is never an ornament of the landscape. It is a thinking, feeling, remembering creature navigating a life as rich and valid as our own. The universe is infinitely more alive than it appears, more full, more various, and more fascinating. And the crow makes that truth visible every single day. Surrender yourself completely to this moment of absolute rest, without a single reservation, holding nothing back from the dark. The night is full, the darkness is soft and protective, and you are exactly where you are meant to be. Crows possess a sophisticated perception of time that extends far beyond the basic framework of a circadian rhythm. While all living organisms contain some form of internal biological clock, a hardwired response to the cycles of light and darkness that regulates the primitive loops of sleeping, waking, and feeding, crows operate with a temporal awareness that behaves more like a structured calendar than a clock. The clearest evidence of this advanced mental time travel manifests in their strategic caching behaviors. Crows do not merely track when they hit a resource in the past. They actively anticipate and plan for specific future states that differ fundamentally from their current reality. In controlled behavioral experiments, corvids were trained to expect specific environmental shifts. They were kept hungry during the morning hours and provided an abundance of food in the evening. Recognizing this pattern, the birds systematically adjusted their current behavior to prepare for that future lack. They began caching a larger volume of food in the specific locations associated with their morning hunger, executing this extra labor even when they were currently full, sated, and held no immediate physical need for sustenance. This represents future-oriented planning in its most advanced form. It requires an organism to hold a detailed mental model of a future subjective state within its imagination, and then actively execute a complex physical choice in the present to prepare for what has not yet occurred. For generations, philosophers and psychologists adamantly argued that this level of long-term planning required the machinery of human language, the ability to hold an internal dialogue with oneself about the future, articulating mentally that which does not yet exist. The crow has proven that theory entirely wrong. Crows do not possess human language, yet they plan across seasons. This reveals that the mental operations underlying future-oriented thought do not depend on words. They are far more ancient, more fundamental, and more widely distributed across the branches of life than our species ever dared to imagine. This capacity to model the future is what grants the crow its ultimate, legendary flexibility. A crow is never locked into a reactive cage, responding only to the immediate stimuli placed directly in front of its bill. It can choose to act now for reasons that will only bear fruit weeks down the line. It can take the long view, making intelligent investments whose survival returns are not immediate. This temporal reach, this beautiful ability to think and plan far beyond the boundaries of the present moment, is the very quality that makes the crow's intelligence feel, in certain quiet moments, so strikingly familiar to our own. Sleep itself is a form of profound, beautiful planning. You lie down in the safety of this dark room tonight, closing your eyes and letting go of the world, simply to prepare your spirit for the promise of tomorrow. You are investing in the morning. Let yourself slide completely into that warm, future-oriented drift. The crows are asleep in the trees, the night is perfectly still, and your rest is absolute. The busy, vibrant echoes of the daytime world have entirely faded now, dissolving into the vast, protective silence of the late night. The intricate stories are written, the deep generational knowledge is safely stored, and the long evolutionary journey of another day has reached its quiet completion. The crow rests completely secure on its high branch, its sharp, analytical mind finally still, its velvet obsidian feathers holding the warmth of 1,000,000 years of survival. Outside your window, the natural world moves in its slow, eternal cycle, watched closely by wise and patient eyes that know exactly how to exist, adapt, and thrive in the deep dark. And you are here, safely anchored at the very edge of the world, where there is nothing left to plan, nothing left to analyze, and absolutely nothing left to do. The resting silence behind your eyes is absolute, soft, and infinitely welcoming. Trust the innate, quiet wisdom of your physical frame as it surrenders completely to the deep, warm, and restorative currents of the night. Let your breath flow naturally. Let the final thoughts of the day fade away into nothingness, like the last distant calls of the roost melting into the evening shadows. One lingering thought, and then another, and then beautifully nothing at all. Just the quiet dark, just the soft and easy breath, just absolute rest. The crow knows the safety of this dark, and so do you. Follow it all the way down into the deep, restful silence where everything is soft and warm and safe. Good night. Sleep well. The crow keeps watch over the edge of the world tonight, just as it always has. And you are held and resting and completely safe. Good night.